Well, welcome to the place where silence is louder than noise, where eyes speak more than mouths, where pain turns into power. You didn't arrive here by accident. You arrived here by pressure, by betrayal, by being ignored when you needed support. They laughed when you were quiet. They smiled when you were struggling. They celebrated when you were falling. But they forgot one thing. Silence is not weakness. Patience is not fear. And kindness is not stupidity. You were watching, learning, building in the dark while they were busy talking. You were becoming. Now look at them, confused, uneasy, nervous, because something about you changed. Your eyes don't beg anymore. Your voice doesn't shake anymore. Your presence doesn't ask for permission. They feel it, they sense it, they fear it. Not because you became loud, but because you became solid. You don't chase respect, you attract it. You don't beg for space, you take it. So welcome to the version of you they can't control, to the version of you they can't break, to the version of you they secretly wish they were. Stay quiet, stay focused, stay dangerous in silence, because the loudest power is the one that doesn't need to speak. They thought you were weak. They thought you were alone. They thought you were easy to break. But what they didn't know was that you were never walking alone. Your enemy went looking for answers, not to heal, but to harm you, to stop you, to understand why, no matter how much they tried, you kept rising. They asked people. They asked shadows. They asked darkness itself. And then they found someone who reads fate. Not for peace, but for power. He looked into your path, your pain, your future, and suddenly he went silent. His face changed, his breath slowed, his voice shook. Then he said, "Leave this person alone." Your enemy laughed. "You're scared of one broken human?" He replied. "I'm not scared of one broken human," he replied. "I'm not scared of them. I'm scared of what walks with them." That day, fear entered your enemy's heart. Because they realized something. You were not lucky, you were guarded. Every time they wished you harm, it returned to them. Every time they planned your fall, you climbed higher. Every time they smiled in front of you, darkness followed them home. Because when your heart is clean, when your intentions are real, and you suffer without becoming evil, you attract protection, not from people, from destiny, from God, from forces you don't see. Your patience became your shield. Your pain became your armor. Your silence became your weapon. They don't hate you because you're bad. They hate you because you survived what broke them. They talk about you in rooms you never enter. They mention your name in prayers that are not clean. They smile in your face, but their hearts whisper your downfall. But every time they try to touch your fate, something blocks their hand. They don't see it, but they feel it. A wall they can't climb, a door they can't open, a path they can't cross. Because you are not moving alone. You walk with pain. You walk with patience. You walk with prayers nobody heard. You walk with tears nobody saw. And those things become guardians. They wanted you weak. Life made you sharp. They wanted you silent. Life made you deep. They wanted you Draken. Life made you dangerous and calm. That's why their sleep is not peaceful. That's why their laughter feels heavy. That's why their success tastes empty. Because deep inside they know you didn't win by cheating. You didn't rise by stepping on others. You didn't survive by becoming evil. You survived by staying real in a fake world. And real people are protected. When you cried alone, something listened. When you prayed in silence, something moved. When you were tired of fighting, something fought for you. Not with noise, not with drama, but with quiet power. So let them talk. Let them plot. Let them plot. Let them plot. Let them plan. Every plan they make against you becomes a lesson for them. Every word they throw at you returns heavier, because when God guards someone, no human can touch them. You don't need revenge. Time is already handling it. You don't need to explain. Truth is already speaking. You don't need to prove. Your survival is already proof. You are still here, after everything. And that is your loudest answer. They see your calm and think you are weak. They don't know. Your calm is trained by storms, trained by loss, trained by nights where you almost gave up. You didn't become calm by luck. You became calm by pain. And pain that doesn't kill you becomes protection. So walk slowly, walk silently, walk confidently, because whatever walks with you doesn't make noise. It just makes sure you always reach where you are meant to be. They think you are lucky. They don't see the scars behind your smile. They don't see the nights you fought yourself. They don't see the days you walked without hope. They only see the result. They never see the price. But the price you paid made you different. Different in how you think. Different in how you feel. Different in how you move. You don't rush. You don't beg. You don't compete with noise. You let time speak. Because you learn something early. People who talk too much are usually hiding something. People who show too much are usually hiding something, are usually empty inside. And people who stay calm are usually carrying storms. You carry storms. Storms of memories, storms of betrayal, storms of promises that were never kept. But you didn't drown. You learned how to walk on pain. You learned how to breathe in pressure. You learned how to smile with a heavy heart. That's not normal strength. That's built strength. They try to copy your confidence, but they can't copy your story. They try to wear your style, but they can't wear your pain. They try to talk like you, but they never lived like you. Because only those who lost a lot value silence. Only those who were broken respect calm. Only those who walked alone understand real power. You don't fear being alone. Because you know what loneliness taught you. It taught you patience. It taught you focus. It taught you how to become your own support. So when people leave, you don't beg them to stay. You just wish them peace and keep walking. Not because you don't care, but because you learned. Some people are lessons, not destinations. They came to show you what you don't want. They came to show you who you should never become. And once they taught you, they had to leave. That's not loss, that's growth. Growth hurts. Growth is lonely. Growth is silent. But growth makes you unbreakable. That's why they don't recognize you anymore. They say you changed. Yes, you did. You changed because staying the same was killing you. You changed because being kind to everyone was making you weak. You changed because trusting blindly was breaking you. So you learned balance. Kind, but not foolish. Quiet, but not weak. Calm, but not powerless. Now you choose who enters your life. Now you choose who hears your story. Now you choose who sees your real face. And most people don't qualify. Not because they are bad, but because they are careless. Careless with words. Careless with promises. Careless with hearts. And your heart is not a playground anymore. It's a temple. Only clean souls are allowed inside. So if someone walks away, you don't chase. If someone betrays, you don't beg. If someone lies, you don't scream. You just step back and let life handle them. Because life is a better judge than you. It sees everything. It records everything. It records everything. Not fast, but fair. So stay patient, stay real, stay silent, because silence is not empty. Silence is full of answers. They don't understand you anymore, because you don't explain yourself now. You don't argue, you don't prove, you don't chase. You let people believe what they want, because you learn something powerful. Those who want to understand you never need explanations. And those who misunderstand you on purpose will never accept the truth. So you stopped wasting energy. Energy is sacred. You only give it to to peace, to becoming better than yesterday. While others fight for attention, you fight for control. Control of your emotions, control of your reactions, control of your direction. Because once you control yourself, no one can control you. They try to provoke you. They try to test you. They try to pull you into noise, but you don't move. Not because you're scared, but because you're disciplined. Discipline is silent power. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need drama to be strong. You don't need drama to be strong. You don't need crowds to feel important. You feel important in your own presence. That's rare. Most people run from themselves. You learn to sit with yourself in silence, in pain, in truth. And that changed you. Now you see fake smiles clearly. Now you feel bad energy early. Now you leave before things get toxic. Not because you're heartless, but because you're careful. You know what heartbreak costs. You know what betrayal feels like. You know what false hope does. So you protect your peace. Peace is expensive. Not everyone can afford it. It costs letting go. It costs walking away. It costs being misunderstood. But it pays in calm, in clarity, in strength. They think you're cold. They think you're distant. They think you're proud. They don't know. You're just tired of bleeding for people who enjoy watching you bleed. So you chose yourself. And choosing yourself is the most dangerous thing you can do in a world that wants to use you. Now you walk light. Not because life is easy, but because you stopped carrying what was never yours. Other people's expectations, other people's drama, other people's hate. You dropped it all. And that's why you move differently. You walk as calm. Your eyes are heavy. Your silence is loud. Because inside you, a storm learned how to rest. And a storm that can rest is more dangerous than a storm that screams. So keep walking. Not fast, not loud, but sure. Because the one who walks, sure, never walks alone. They wonder how you became like this. So calm, so steady, so unreadable. They don't know you were once loud, once soft, once open. But life taught you. It taught you that not everyone who smiles wants to see you win. It taught you that not every hand that helps is clean. It taught you that not every tear means pain. Some tears are weapons. Some smiles are traps. Some words are poison. So you learned silence. Not the silence of fear, the silence of understanding. You listen more. You speak less. You watch everything. You notice who changes when you enter. You notice who changes when you enter. You notice who forgets you when you leave. You notice who claps when you fall. And you remember, not to take revenge, but to stay aware. Awareness is power. A person who sees clearly is hard to control. That's why they don't like your silence, because silence sees. Noise hides. Silence reveals. They try to pull you back into old versions of you. They say, you're not fun anymore. You changed. You became boring. No, you became careful. Careful with your time. Careful with your heart. Careful with your energy. Because you learned everything you give away must be earned. Not by words, by actions. Not by promises, by consistency. So now, when someone says they care, you watch. When someone says they will stay, you wait. When someone says they are real, you test. Not with traps, but with time. Because time never lies. Time exposes fake love. Time exposes fake loyalty. Time exposes fake souls. And time always stands with the patient. So you don't rush bonds. You don't rush trust. You don't rush love. You let it grow, or you let it go. Either way, you stay whole. That's your power. They break when people leave. You grow. They beg when they are alone. You build. They blame when they fail. You learn. That's why you are different. Not better, not worse, just awake. Awake to the truth that life is not fair, but it is honest. It always pays back. Not in noise, in results. So keep walking, keep watching, keep becoming. because the one who becomes in silence arrives in power. They can't read you anymore. Your face doesn't show your battles. Your voice doesn't carry your storms. But inside, wars were fought. Wars with doubt. Wars with fear. Wars with giving up. And you won quietly. No claps. No crowd. No celebration. Just you and the decision to not quit. Most people quit in their heads long before they quit in life. You didn't. You stayed when it hurt. You stayed when it was lonely. You stayed when nobody believed. That's not luck. That's courage. Real courage is silent. It doesn't shout. It doesn't post. It doesn't shout. It doesn't shout. It doesn't shout. It doesn't shout. And survival changes a person. It changes how you look at people. It changes how you trust. It changes how you love. You love slower now. You trust deeper. You leave faster. Not because you're heartless, but because you know what heartbreak costs. You know how heavy nights can be. You know how loud silence can sound. You know how cold promises feel. So you don't play with hearts, and you don't let others play with yours. That's respect. Respect for pain. Respect for time. Respect for yourself. They think you became distant, but you just became selective. Selective with energy. Selective with courtings. Because words create bonds, and bonds create wounds if made carelessly. So you speak when it matters. You stay quiet when it doesn't. That balance is power. You don't chase attention, you chase alignment. Alignment with peace. Alignment with growth. Alignment with growth. And when you walk in alignment, you don't feel lost. Even when you are alone, because loneliness taught you how to be your own home. And a person who is their own home is never homeless in life. So if the world feels heavy, remember this: you already survived things that should have broken you, and the same strength that carried you here will carry you forward. Quietly, steadily, powerfully. They don't see the nights where you talk to the ceiling. They don't see the mornings where you forced yourself to move. They only see the version of you that learned how to stand straight. But standing straight after being bent by life is not normal. It takes pain. It takes patience. It takes a heart that refused to turn cold. You could have become bitter. You could have become cruel. You could have become like them, but you didn't. You chose depth over damage. You chose growth over revenge. You chose silence over noise. That choice cost you people. That choice cost you comfort. That choice cost you old dreams. But it gave you clarity. Clarity about who you are. Clarity about what you deserve. Clarity about what you will never accept again. You don't beg for love. You don't beg for loyalty. You don't beg for respect. If it's not given freely, you don't want it. That's strength. They stay where they are not valued. You leave, they explain their worth. You walk, they beg for attention. You disappear, and that scares them. Because people who can walk away cannot be controlled. So they try to pull you back with words, with memories, with guilt. But you don't move, not because you forgot, but because you remembered how much it cost you to heal, and you will not pay that price again. So you protect your peace like a treasure. Not everyone deserves access to your mind. Not everyone deserves access to your heart. Not everyone deserves access to your time, because time is life, and you don't give life to those who waste it. So walk proud, not loud, not arrogant, just sure of your growth. Sure of your growth, sure of your growth, because every scar is a story of survival, and survivors move differently. They say you are hard to love now, but they never ask how hard it was to survive. They want the healed version of you, but don't respect the pain that created it. They want your calm, but don't respect the storms you walked through. They want your loyalty, but don't understand the betrayal you carry. So you don't explain anymore. Because explaining doesn't heal. Understanding does. and those who care will understand without words. You learn to read energy, not faces. You learn to feel intentions, not promises. Promises are easy. Energy is honest. That's why you trust vibes more than voices. You feel when something is off. You sense when someone is fake. You know when someone is not clean. And you move away, not with hate, not with drama, with silence. Silence is your answer. Silence is your boundary. Silence is your power. They think silence means you have nothing to say. They don't know silence means you already said everything in your head, and you don't owe anyone every thought you have. Some thoughts are for healing, not for sharing. You don't need applause. You don't need validation. You don't need a blow view. You need peace. And peace doesn't come from people. It comes from choosing yourself. So you choose yourself every day, even when it's lonely, even when it hurts, even when you miss people who were never good for you. That's not weakness. That's courage. The courage to not return to what broke you. So if someone says, you changed, smile, because change is proof you survived, and survival is the loudest success. They try to remind you of who you used to be. They say, you were better before, you were softer before, you were easier before. They don't understand. The old you was bleeding, the old you was tired, the old you was losing. So yes, you are not the same. And that's good. You are stronger, you are wiser, you are calmer, not because life was kind, but because you learned how to be kind to yourself. Self-kindness is power. It means you rest when you are tired. It means you leave when you are hurt. It means you say no without guilt. They don't like that, because people who can say no cannot be used. So they call you selfish. They call you cold. They call you proud. Let them. You know the truth. You know how much you gave. You know how much you lost. You know how much you survived. You don't need their labels. Labels don't define survivors. Scars do. And your scars are beautiful. Not pretty, but powerful. They are proof that you didn't quit. So when you feel tired, don't look at people. Look at your past. Look at how many times you almost gave up, but didn't. That's your real story. Not success, not money, not praise. Survival. And survival is the strongest form of victory.